Today we spoke about autonomous vehicles and data protection. So I think what was an interesting topic coming up also in the follow-up discussions today was the link between ethics and autonomous vehicles. So quite a few participants did ask about it. So what is the actual link between technology and autonomous vehicles, and why are we discussing it? Why is it important? So following the discussion we had with Fabro afterwards, we try to highlight some of the examples. So it's the obvious example done through MIT, and lots of people in the transport world are aware about it. So in case of an accident and someone has to lose a life, who will it be? So this is a dilemma, and the relevant algorithms are being designed now. But this is not the only issue that we're dealing with here. So another thing we discussed was GDPR, so the General Data Protection Regulation, which was introduced last May in the European Union, but also similar legislation that exists in Brazil. And we identified that it's only the first step, it's not the conclusion of the discussion, and there will be lots of follow-ups. Another issue that is really relevant to the previous one is the legal frameworks. So legal frameworks are essential, has always been, and will continue to be. But again, we need to be flexible, so it's not easy to develop those while innovation is happening. So we need to have open mind, and we discussed, for example, today open source and closed coding, software coding. So those are issues we need to take into account and realize that there is a huge spectrum between the two extremes. Business opportunities and making data accessible for businesses, that's again very important. So we discussed issues like infrastructure that's being needed and the vast amounts of funding that are essential. So one opportunity here is through the data. We just need to increase awareness, train people, educate people, inform people as users about their own data. Being anonymized data, that's a challenge. But again, users will have the choice whether to use anonymized data or whether they're willing to give their personal data and receive something in return, for example, a better service. Liability was another key topic we discussed. So liability in terms of accidents, in terms of insurance. Who will be responsible? Will it be the car manufacturer? Will it be OEMs? Or who in the end? Again, this is an area under development. But like with previous technologies, like has happened before, we try to be optimistic, and I'm sure that people and stakeholders working together will come up with relevant solutions. Lastly, we discussed about the transition period, so the period that will take from today until we reach the point of full automation, or level 5 automation as we call it. Then this will take maybe 10 years, 20 years, even 50 years, so no one really knows nowadays the duration of this transition period. So what's important is to prepare ourselves both for the transition period through, for example, AV trials that are being organized and planned currently, and also for the period where autonomous vehicles will become the trend. Companies are aware of this, so they're very aware of ethics, but as is written in the literature, they're very interested and they're very open to this until they're required to take some action. When an action is required by companies, then this is where their approach is changing, because this means extra costs, extra funding, time delays to innovation, and so on. However, there are lots of initiatives. Why exactly this is one action? There are lots of projects. So I'm aware of a French project focusing on ethics of AVs, for example, through Vedecom. And there are lots of other collaborations. I don't want to mention specific car manufacturers, but governments are also interested in this. So it will be something to follow up, and also follow up at different government levels, so local level and national level. As we established today, it's really important to have international collaboration. GDPR in the European Union, so it's only about 6-7 months old now, and still companies are trying to adapt to it. And the same happens here in Brazil with the legislation. I've been informed. So this is very good initiatives, and I'm very sure that other companies in other countries are following those paradigms. So this is very, very useful. Something that also Fabro established is about the human rights. So what we need to try to come up with is maybe the rights to access information or to use information. And the example Fabro mentioned was the one of the internet. So we don't know how technology will evolve, and we need to allow the opportunities for its innovation, for its development to happen. So we do not need to restrict innovation. So in that sense, acknowledging the rights is important, But again, we need to leave room for innovation, need room for companies to test those issues.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Is that good? Yeah. That's brilliant.